Alright, I am recording. So hey guys, it's Roland here, and today I'll be giving a workshop on building a RESTful API with Express and Postman. Hope everybody has been enjoying the hackathon so far. I actually recorded this once before, but I ran out of storage and my mic wasn't recording, so that was unlucky. So I'm just gonna briefly go through it this time, or the second time, or at least more briefly than the last time. So yeah, so let's get straight into it. So everybody has probably seen these error codes once in a while on the internet, 404, 502, three-digit numbers saying something screwed up. But what do these numbers really mean? And that's where kind of APIs come in, or I mean RESTful APIs. They'll kind of explain why. So what will we be learning building today? We'll learn about RESTful APIs, APIs in general, how what is Express, and we will be building our own mock store API with Express. Prerequisites: you should have some knowledge of JavaScript, preferably some ES6, because we will be using arrow functions, callbacks, and all that. And you should have some Node prior experience with Node.js, and npm is packaged with Node, so I still don't know why I put that there, just probably because you should probably know some how to use the Node package manager at least. So what's an API? You've probably have heard it through your classes or just once in a while. Maybe you read it online, just fancy word. Uh, and really what it means is just application programming interface. And it's kind of just like the telephone line between computers. It's what allows computers to talk to each other. And I think the best analogy I could probably think for this is kind of like you're in a restaurant. So when you go in and you order food, right? You're basically the request in this case. You're requesting food. And at the back, you got the chef who's making the food. But how does the chef know what to make? And that's because you have a waiter there that's taking your order, your request, and giving it back to the chefs. So that and the waiters in between, they'll like do whatever. They'll write on a piece of paper. They'll like maybe give it like a special order. They'll do all the marking down, and then the chefs on the back will do all the magic. They'll be making the food, and then when that happens, they'll respond and they'll give it back to the waiters. The waiters make it look fancy. They'll do their like maybe a dance when they give it back to you or something like that. I don't know, and they'll be pretty much serving you up, and that's pretty much what's going on here. Is computers the same exact thing. They make a request. They want to get food. The waiter brings it over. That's the API, and the chefs make it on the back, and they respond, send it through the waiter back through the API back into the computers in the front with a request. And that's pretty much it. It's just a way of communicating between computers. RESTful APIs. So RESTful stands for Representational State Transfer, and it's just been the way APIs have been standardized to be developed since probably the early 2000s or so. And really, what it is it's just the ways APIs are, I guess, modern day APIs are made, and they do it by organizing data and resources into different addresses called uniform resource identifiers, not to be confused with URLs. URLs are a different thing. So URLs actually stand for uniform resource locators, and the difference between is that URLs are a subset of URIs. So URLs, in addition to URIs, they also contain the instructions how to get the information, while URIs are just identifiers. So your URI, for example, could be like your name, and then our URL is like your address, right? It's just more specific, I guess you could say. URLs have more information than our URI. Yep. So this is an example URI. It looks a lot like a URL, or yeah, I guess you could say that. It looks pretty much like any URL. So we got your network location, uh, and then you have your resource, and that's just the slash that comes right after. And this is pretty much your URI, and we're gonna see a lot of these when we go into our workshop. And here's an example request. So this would be like what our client side would be sending over through the API. All requests contain a method, HTTPS get, not get, but just a method in general. So here's get. It'll all contain a resource, which is the identifier or that they're searching for. The header, or headers, which is other metadata about your request that's being sent through. So here you got what data it accepts and the authorization token, like a OAuth or anything like that, just to make sure that maybe like you're not allowed to use that or send a request. That's just some cases, but and then finally you got your body, which is your information, your order, your specific information that you're passing in, what you want to get out, etc., etc. So HTTP request methods, there's a lot more than what's put here, but these are just some main ones. I'm going to go over them briefly. We have a website that you can actually go and see all of them, or just at least the main ones on MDN Web Docs. So here are some of them. We got get, head, put, post. You could read all about it, but I'm just going to go over some of them briefly. The two main ones that you should definitely take away from this workshop are get and post. So get is when you want to obtain any information. You're not making any changes. You just want to get information. So that's get. Post is when you want to upload information from your client to the server through your API. So this is when you want to completely make something new. Put is when you want to completely override something. So like you want to wipe something on the end, but you still want to retain its structure. Like let's say you have a slot for like your bank account. You want to wipe out that bank account, give it to someone new. That would be put. Patch is when you want to modify some information slightly. So maybe like you want to buy one item from the back or something like that. You want to maybe change like the price of an item in your database. And delete, self-explanatory, is when you want to delete something. But the main two you should get here are get and post. You don't really need any of the others if you really feel like it, but get is you just don't change anything. Post is when you send something. And here's an example response. So you got your status, which is the code, like 404, 500, 200. We'll go over what each code means right after this. You got your headers, which is the metadata once again. Here you have the latency it took to get to and from the server. Your server name or type or something like that. And finally your body, which is the response itself that we're interested in, which is why we sent the request. Yep, so we have status codes here. 200 means any 200 code is good, or most of them are at least good. That's a good sign. 400, it means that something on your end screwed up. And then 500, it means something on their end messed up. And I probably should have explained this in the beginning, but client means our end, and server is like the back end, what we're talking to. Yep. So to create our API today, we'll be using Postman and Express. But I'll go over Postman first. So Postman is an API testing application, and it has a lot of utilities that will help us create our build our API in general. It can test requests and it can see responses really well, and it formats in a way which is very useful to us so that we can see a lot of information. Express is the backend Node.js framework. It's used in web development and developing APIs a lot mainly. But what makes it so great is that it's very simple and flexible. And also it's in JavaScript. So a lot of the time when you're making a web app or not really the APIs, but like when you're just making a web app in general, you want to have, it's nice to have one uniform language because it just makes things easier and more, I guess you could say, organized. So I guess that's my last slide. So we're gonna go straight into it. I'm gonna open up VS Code. Make sure you have Postman and VS Code and any of the prerequisites already downloaded Node before I get into it. But just for time's sake, I'm just gonna get in here. So we're gonna open up Terminal. To do that, Control apostrophe in the top left and the plus sign in your top right of your keyboard, or you could just look up how to open Terminal. And first we want to npm init, and we're gonna create our project. So if you don't know npm init, the -y just makes it so we don't have to answer any of the questions, and we're going to install Express right into it. Yep, so now that we're doing here, we have just installed Express. So that's all we really need, actually. So let's get right into it. We can make anything our API name, but I'm just going to call this app.js. This will be like our server. And what we're going to do is first we got to call our import Express. So let's do that first. So const Express means oh my god, my brain's malfunctioning. Require Express. Yep, there we go. And now we want to make our app our server, really. So const app equals Express, and this is creating an instance of Express. And after that, we want to listen on a port. So const port, this will be our port number. It can vary from, depending on what you host your Express server on. It can be 80, could be 0, could be 1010. It maybe if like you host on AWS, Google Cloud, Heroku, whatever you host it on, it's gonna be different in every area. So sometimes there'll be like process.env, or it'll like declare like another number. So yeah, and now we're gonna turn on our server. So to do that, we're gonna do app.listen, and we're gonna pass in our port that we want to do. And what listen does, it turns on our Express server and it tells it to listen for requests and just be ready for requests, kind of like just get ready. And we're going to pass in a callback function so we know if it actually worked and went through. So let's do it right now. Console.log, the server is running on port. So this is going to, if it works, then See, so let's get this running node. Oops, what happened? I should just rerun code. Uh-oh, process end. Okay, yeah, so, give me a quick second. I need to look into that. So, pardon me for a second. Okay, yeah, just for the time being, I'm just gonna remove. Oh, there's my Spotify playing Drake. So just for the time being, I'm just gonna remove process end, but just know that there's something out there. So we're just gonna keep this as port 8080. Let's get this running. There we go. Our server is running on port 8080. So now we have officially our server up. But like it can't really do much really. If you want to access the API or the server, I guess what you do is you go to localhost and then the name of colon followed by your port number, and it's going to give us an error that says cannot get slash. So what that means is I'll keep this side by side for the time being. I'm going to actually, let me just, so it's easier to see. Yeah, so it's saying cannot get slash, and that's because we don't have it listening for any type of request. So to do that, let's make a get endpoint. So these are called endpoints. And we're going to make a get endpoint here. So when it gets a get request for slash, then we want to send it something. So let's give it a callback function. We want to taking 2 parameters, the request and the result. Let's use an arrow function to get that going. And let's just get it to send something. So res.send hello. And what this is going to do is when any server or any client tries to send a request to localhost 8080 slash, it's going to send back hello. So it's going to go to our endpoint and send this result. So now we reset our server. To reset, we should do Control C at the same time. That cancels all processes at the same time. And now we got that running. So let's now we restarted, I guess you could say, yeah. And there we go. We got it running. Localhost 8080 slash hello. Yep. And we have our page going. So that's a get request. We're just obtaining information. And you can pass. You don't have to pass in text. You can pass in a JSON. You can pass in really any type of file back. There are. I know there are some types of limits. Like if you pass a file that's too big, it might get lost in translation. You're going to lose some data maybe, or there might just be limits to prevent that from happening, from clogging things up. Because I actually did a project back then with like a video, and we tried passing from a client to a server and client, and that just did not work out. That was chaotic. That hackathon project did not go well. But yeah, just know that you can pass a lot of different types of files back and forth. Most of the time when you make like a server, this will be like a web page or something, and when you go to the domain, click this, you get the web page. Yeah, so right now, that was kind of a tangent. Sorry about that. Let's get straight back to it. Let's start making our store. So let's say I have. Oh, probably should do this. So let's start going into Postman. So actually, I'll debug this first, or go over debugging in the browser. So Postman is a lot more useful because you can set it gives you a lot more customization with your browser. You kind of lose that. But what you can do if you decide to only use your browser, which I do not recommend, at least use some API testing application. If you do send right-click inspect, go to network, you can see your requests, and you get information generally about it. 3 or 4 not modified, get local, you get everything. You get the entire response body. And like, let's say you make like a bad request or something, right? You get 404. You can look into it. 404 not found, etc. All that, and you get the error up there, of course. But yeah, let's move to Postman now because that's what we're interested in. Postman. So to get started with Postman, let's create a new collection. We're going to call this collection, just for organization purposes, we're going to call it our store API. And we're going to store everything in here. So let's oh, oopsie doopsies. Let's create a new request. Let's call this our store data. Right? Oh, can I rename it? Let me save it. Yeah, save inside our store API. Store data. This will be just our general GET request. So localhost 8080, give it our URL or base URL, and just slash send. There we go. We get back hello, and a lot more customization. You can pass in different file types. You can make unit tests. You can do all that fun stuff. You can visualize, preview. You just get more customization really with Postman. You can change all the types, so you see all here, like these are just so many different types of methods that you could do. But aside that, let's get making our store. So I want to make our store. So let's make a var store, and let's just have this be our mock store. So let's say I want a fruit store. So I want to have, let's say we have, yeah, let's say I have apples, right? I want maybe I want the stock of the how many apples are left in stock. So let's say there's 20 apples left in stock and the price of the apple. So let's just say $2 an apple, and let's put another item in. So let's maybe get oranges. So an orange, how many oranges we got? We have 33 oranges, and each orange is $1. That's a pretty expensive orange. So this is our little mock store we got going on, and maybe I just want to send that store back. When I ask for it, I just want the store back. So now that we changed that, let's reset our server. Send this, and there we go. We got our, this is what we get back. We get our JavaScript object that we made in the form of a JSON. And if we actually go back here and let's look into this, it's formatted, if you notice, it's formatted in a different way. So that's something to take note of. JSON's, when you, I might actually have a plugin, but original JSON toggle, yeah. So if you don't have this plugin, or I'm not sure if this is something new, you're going to get something that looks like this on your browser. That's when you know it's a JSON, and it looks distinctly different from HTML, or just like a raw response. So that's another thing. If you use your browser only, you're going to get different looking responses, and Postman makes it look pretty and easy and readable. Okay, so we have our little store here, and let's get into post request actually. Or actually no, before we do that, let's get into our using our parameters and as variables. So let's say I want to check on an item. So I want to say I want to check on it, and I want to pass the name of the item. So this is important. When you make an endpoint, if you put a colon followed by a name of an item, that's formatting a space for a parameter, which is a slot where it can change inside the URL, and it'll return a different response depending on it, or most of the time a different response. Or it's supposed to do something on the back end at least different. So actually what we're doing here is we're actually creating endpoints, like these two are endpoints, and what we're actually going to do here is we're going to be writing the middleware, which is everything that happens between your request and your result. So that's why it's called middleware, because it's between the back and the front. Yep, so let's say we want to use something called object destructuring. We're going to get the item from our rec.params. So that's just going to take item from this. We're going to make an item variable from the parameters. And what we want to do is we want to just return, so res.send store item. We want to get the item in the store. So I'm gonna reset the server. Let's try it. Alright, that works. Maybe you want to get the apple. Oh, we got an error. Let's see what we got going on here. I accidentally misspelled check apple. There we go. So actually, just for organization purposes, we're going to keep that like this. And with Postman, another nice thing is if you're going to use it, you should get really organized. So let's make a new, not a new collection. Let's make a new request. So let's call this, let's do our localhost 8080, and then C, or check apple. There we go, stock 20, price 2, which matches up with our store, which I just hid. That is correct. So let's save this as a new, let's call this request store, check item. And let's save it inside our store API. So now we can go back and forth interchangeably and test the APIs when you need them, instead of just wiping one out, and it makes it a lot more organized. And you can check out results too, if you're going to run multiple at the same time. But there is an issue here, actually. What if I were to, let's say, pass in something that didn't exist, appa-sid? We're going to get nothing back. And actually, that is an issue. So if we were actually passing in a JSON, there's a lot of different intricacies and side effects if you don't do error handling. So we're going to handle this error. Let's say if our item is not in the store, I want to send back a JSON saying an error, like something went wrong. So if store item equals null, so it doesn't exist, then we are going to send with a status of 412, send, and we're going to send a JSON with an error message saying item 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 is not found in the store. So let's get that up and going, and let's try it now. There you go. We have an error. Oh, I misspelled error. That's fine. But yeah, you guys get the point. We're error handling here. We're handling what happens if something goes wrong, and so the users on the client end, because realistically, when people actually use APIs, most of the time they're not they're not gonna know what's happening really on the server. So you gotta have at least like some error knowing that something went wrong when it actually didn't. So yep. Yeah. So let's go on to our post request. I think we're probably gonna make 2 post requests, and I'll sum up this workshop. So let's get a let's do a post request. Actually, let's do a patch. So like, let's say I wanted to buy an item from our store, right? It's gonna be really similar to our app.get, except we're just gonna be manipulating some things. So let's say I wanted to buy an item, and actually let's take in a quantity too. Let's start making things spicier here. All right, and of course we need our res callbacks. Right. Now what I want to do is I want to destructure, so I want to take the item and the quantity from the parameters. Now what I want to do now is let's check if it really exists. So I'm going to copy this right over. There we go. So we're going to just do some error handling there. And then next what we're going to do is we're going to do the main stuff. So let's actually check if, so we're going to grab this store let's actually check if the amount they want to buy is too much for the amount in stock. So let's get the item in stock. So store item stock is less than quantity. Then I want to where's that status? Let's give them another error. Someone's gonna copy paste this. Say error. There is not enough item left in store. Only store item.stock, not quantity. Yep, so that should give error code in case there is more than it can chew off. Alright, but in case all of that goes well, then what I want to do is I want to do store item.stock minus equals store item, or I can do minus equals. This is JavaScript, quantity. And then I want to, let's just say, let's send back a message saying, let's send back a JSON message saying success. You have bought, what's the quantity? Oh, gotta surrender that. We're gonna get that to work. Of item. And in addition to that, I'm just gonna stack on what's left in store. Yep. So let's try that out. So I want to make a new request. So let's call this our patch request. I want to localhost 8080 by apple 10. Send that. You have bought 10 of apple. Great. Look, there we go. We lost 10 stock there. Now what happens if I put in 20, right? Not enough apple to buy in store. Uh-oh. Only 10, not 20. It worked. But there is one error I forgot to handle here, and we're going to handle that right now. What if quantity does not exist? So in the event that they do not pass in a valid number or something like that, but actually, if it's not a valid, yeah, we're going to have to handle that later. So this is just, I'm just going to leave this here for now, but you could have cases like if you pass in letters, but I'm not going to, just for the sake of this workshop, I don't have time to do that. But let's do our last thing. Let's go over a post. I want to really do this because this is pretty important. If I missed this, we're going to do a post request, and let's say I want to upload an item to the store. I am a marketer. Let's say I want to sell my pears to the store. All right, I want to add my pears. I'm gonna put them up for sale. So let's add an item to the store. And I'm not going to add in any parameters, actually. We're going to do that through a JSON. All right, so let's get our res. Yep, and what we're going to do here is we're going to it's going to get a little bit different. So something you actually need to do is we're going to have to tell our app to use something. We're gonna need a body parser, because when you pass JSON, or whenever you pass different types of files through, you may have to teach Express or your server to be able to read or manipulate. You're gonna have to give it some middleware to be able to manipulate some of these things and understand it. So if you just pass a JSON file through, it's not gonna know how to read it. So that's why we're gonna use express.json, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna tell it how to read JSON files that's passed through as requests. Yep, so besides that, let's get going. So now we're using body parser now. So let's take let's just test it. Let's just console that log rec.body. And actually, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to comment this out so you guys can see what happens. So what would happen if we do that? So let's try passing any JSON through without the JSON body parser. So what I'm going to do is actually, let's just save this. I'm going to call it by. Forgot to do this before. And let's get our new post. And we want to do localhost 8080 add. So now we want to send a JSON file through. So that's different. So we're going to do that. We have to go to body, raw, and then change to JSON, so it knows that we're passing in a JSON as a request. So of course, let's just pass in anything. So let's just keep value pair apple apple. Doesn't matter. We're going to change back this later. And we're going to send the request, and we're going to get some issue. Oh, I didn't have this server running. Okay. There we go. We got an issue. Undefined. It did not read apple apple. This is supposed to print apple apple, but it didn't. So what we're going to do is we're going to put app.use express.json. Now it knows how to read it. Run it again. And now we got apple apple here. So now we know that it is reading the JSON. And what we're going to do now is we are going to start getting it to work. That's really what we're going to do here. So just for the sake of time, I'm not going to error handle this. We're just going to expect that it's going to follow the following format. It's going to follow the format of the name, which would be, let's just say pair. We're going to have a stock, which is how much we want to have. So let's just say 20, 21, and we're going to have the price. So I want my pairs to be super expensive, 231. Yep. Res, we're going to shoot. Brain fart. Alright, yep, so we're going to if we want to add it to our store, then what we're going to do is no error handling for the time being. Store that. I'm trying to think what we're going to have to do here. So we're actually going to have to make like temp array. It's a little bit confusing. You'll see why soon. Let's make a temp array, and then we're going to have to temp array, and then we're going to make a pointer to it. So we're going to make the pointer the rec.body.name. Yes, so we're going to take the name out of our body, and that's going to be like so if you see up in store here, that would be this here. And the reason why we can't do that, or the reason why we're doing this, is because you can't directly name a variable under, like, if I were to do, like, rec.body.name equals whatever, the JavaScript object, and try sending that through here, it's not going to work. It's just going to change whatever is in rec body name, which we don't want. We want to be able to pass in rec body name in addition. So after that, we're going to assign it to a JSON file, including stock, which is the rec.body.stock, and then price. Yep, that should work. And then after that, we are going to reassign store. So store is we're gonna concatenate it with whatever's in store and our temp array. Okay, so that should work. And now let's send back our message saying success. You have uploaded body.name. Of course, we gotta change this. Honestly, this is a bit redundant. We probably should have just destructured it at the top. So let's just do that in the time being, because ES6 name stock price. It's just better practice to do that up here. And get it from rect.body. Now we can remove this repetition we got going on over here. To the store. And now we're gonna add store to it. Okay. Should work. Pass this in. Successfully have added pair to the store. There you go. Pair is in now, like our little, I guess you could say NoSQL database. We got our makeshift level 1, our JavaScript object on the server. And pair is on the store. So now we could, let's actually save this as our add. Yep. And I will be uploading all this, the code and everything too later. But, yeah, here we go. We got our little makeshift little store API we got going on here and get the data from the server. You got pear, orange, apple. Maybe I want to buy like 20 pears. 20 pear. What if I want to check an item out? Let me check out oranges. You get the point here. It's really organized. You could do a lot. And yeah, so thank you for coming to the workshop.